A man watching a nature documentary discovers he has a puzzling desire. And no, it's not bestiality. Don't worry about that. You never know, though, with this show. And then we take a look at the story of a creature that is so fierce, so violent towards life itself, it'll do whatever it takes to destroy any living being, including mentally crawling inside of women's wombs. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys had an awesome last 2 weeks. I did. Fully refreshed. We had our 2-week break. We're ready to start off season 29. I couldn't be more relaxed or happier. I'm actually on cloud 9 right now. I'm so happy. I'm on cloud 10. Everything's going really good. Had a really long, restful break, and we're ready to bring back Dead Rabbit Radio roaring to life. We got a lot of stuff to cover today, so first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet and give it up for Fantasy Crest. Woohoo! Yeah! A big old symbol of dragons and stuff is floating on into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, a coat of arms. Your honor, my liege. You do a little bow for him. Fantasy Crest is our newest member of our Patreon. That is why he is going to be our captain or pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the merch store or the Patreon, I totally understand. I really do. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, Fantasy Crest, before we get started here, I got a couple things to say. First off, I did an interview recently with Dr. Kelly Schutz, a friend of mine who hosts Paranormal LATTE. She actually has a ton of different podcasts, but Paranormal LATTE is, I believe, her newest one. It's on YouTube. And I did a pretty good in-depth interview with her probably about a month ago at this point. I had taken the break and all that crazy stuff was going on. This is the first time I've had to mention it, but I'll put the link in the show notes. We talk a lot about the gin experience that I had recently, some paranormal stuff like that. I go into a little bit more about the haunted fast food restaurants. And so, yeah, check it out. It's a really fun interview. I don't do a lot of interviews, honestly. It's not something that I'm super comfortable with. Because I used to be a journalist, and I used to interview people, and I was what was known as a gotcha journalist. And I was always trying to get people to say stuff they didn't expect. So my defenses are always up when I'm giving interviews. I know some of you guys have reached out to interview me for podcasts and such before. A while back, I forgot where I put it. It's somewhere around here. I wanted to give him a shout out again. He did a college paper on me. I'll find the college paper and I'll give him a shout out in a future episode. But I'm really reluctant to do interviews, honestly. So I'm trying to do more of them. So if you do have a podcast or anything like that, if you have a blog or a journal or whatever, reach out to me. Maybe I'll do it. You're like, wait, what? You just said you don't want to do them. Now you're saying you might do them. I just don't really like doing interviews because you just never know what's going to happen, right? I prefer a more controlled environment, if you could believe that, as chaotic as the show is. Now, I was a real gotcha journalist. When I worked at the American River College newspaper, the administration hated talking to me. And I don't think they didn't like me personally as well, but they definitely didn't like talking to me because one wrong thing that they would say, and I'd be like, ah, gotcha. I'd say that, and then I'd jump up out of my chair and run and publish an article. No, I'm trying to be more open to interviews and stuff like that. So, but anyways, check out Paranormal LATTE. Dr. Kelly Schutz is a good friend of mine, and she is a really fun interview to do. I'll put that in the show notes. Also, talking about haunted fast food restaurants, we recently went to the Port Gamble Ghost Conference about 2 weeks ago up in Port Gamble, Washington, and that was a lot of fun. I'm telling you guys, listen, I understand that the show's international. I understand that not everyone can get out to see me. That's completely irrelevant. You guys, I recommend go to local paranormal conventions. You will have a ball. It's a lot of fun. You're going to meet a lot of people who are like-minded, who also love this stuff. And it's just a great community. It really is, because paranormal research and really love of the paranormal a lot of times can be a solitary pursuit. So when you can go into a room of 100, 200 people or what have you, or maybe 10 or 20, it doesn't really matter on the size. You get to talk about the paranormal, get to share your experiences, or just get to listen to the experiences of other people. It's great. It's really good. So I had a great experience. I've had nothing but good experiences at the ghost conferences I've gone to. I'm actually aiming to be a speaker at an upcoming true crime conference. I don't know if I'll get that, but I will definitely be at the Oregon Ghost Conference in 2026. So I'll be announcing that as the dates get solidified and all that. I'm doing a presentation on haunted underwear. Listen, man, I know my lane, and I'm sticking to it. I did a goofy speech the first time. I did a semi-serious speech presentation the second time. And I realized that it just didn't go over as well. I didn't feel like it wasn't what the audience expected. I'm not up there wearing a bozo nose, right? I'm not being a true clown. Although there is, talk about lost media. I know yesterday's episode was a lost episode. There is now video footage of me imitating a crawler. You know, those big, really thin, pale white creatures that have been reported crawling around. I've seen them. We've done a lot of stories on them. Someone in the audience at Port Gamble asked, well, what does a crawler look like? And I go, well, damn it. I mean, listen, I obviously brought up the topic and they don't know what it is. So there is lost media out there. I have a copy and my buddy Brian Blackwood has a copy. It's of me attempting to imitate a crawler. I strip down. I'm wearing nothing. No, that part's made up, but I am bent over, walking around. It's about a 5-second clip. And I said, no one recorded this. And of course, Brian immediately pulls out his phone. But anyways, and it was a blast. It was so much fun there. So much fun there. You guys, if you guys can't make the conferences that I go to, I totally get it. Go to conferences in your area. If there are none in your area, try starting one. Try starting a club. Really is cool. Great to have a community. Okay, Fantasy Crest, let's go ahead and get this ball rolling. Let's bring out the classic. I believe it was the first vehicle we ever used, the Jason Jalopy. Everyone climb on board this rickety old hunk of junk. As Fantasy Crest fires it up, we're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Why don't you drive us all the way out to the land that time forgot? Specifically, we're headed back to the Carboniferous period. And I hope you guys enjoy lots of oxygen, because this was the time period where there was more oxygen ever on the planet. You're like, damn it, Jason, is this some science story that you barely understand? I'm gonna take deep breaths, guys. This is pure oxygen. Oh, I guess the planet at that point, or the atmosphere, was 30% oxygen, which doesn't sound like a lot. Which sounds like less than I am breathing now, but apparently we don't. A long time ago, I think we covered it on the show. There's that conspiracy theory that humans aren't native to Earth. And one of the big reasons why is because, like, oxygen is poisonous to us. And it's really interesting. I'll see if I can pull that episode up, because I believe that we covered that before, but it's this idea that oxygen is actually really bad for the human body. Too much oxygen, definitely. And our bodies really aren't designed for the gravity of the planet. There's some weird irregularities that makes it seem like we're from another place. But back when the planet had, the atmosphere was 30% oxygen, that's when big bugs ruled. So we're back in the Carboniferous period, and we're seeing like giant mosquitoes. And then like a big beetle was over there. Yeah, Jason, they were like 5 inches as opposed to 2 inches today. I don't know how big they were, but they were bigger than now. And this was also the time period I go, hey guys, look, come over here. And we're standing at this riverbank, and we see this little tiny like aquatic creature swimming around. And then he gets bored. We notice he's kind of rolling his eyes. He's like, oh, this sucks. So he puts one flipper on land, and then the other flipper on land, and he reaches his head out of the water and takes a deep breath of 30% oxygen. He loves it. Gets a little high. Then we see him go back into the water. And I go, that was the very first step. There's no reptiles around. Have you noticed that? As your eyes are being devoured by giant beetles? Oh yeah, sorry. Should have worn sunglasses like me. There's no reptiles around. Reptiles didn't exist yet. What we just saw was this little fish dude taking the first steps onto land. And what is going to happen is he's going to go back to his wife and he's like, hey, baby, let's have sex, but both of us think really hard about dirt. She's like, what? You have a dirt fetish now? Is this the evolution of the first fetish? He's like, honey, listen, if we bang each other and we think about dirt, then the eggs that I fertilize inside of you, maybe those babies will have fingers. If this is how evolution works, you didn't know? You have to think really hard about what you want to be. Because this little reptile, it wasn't a reptile, a little fish boy, he's the first of a amphibious species, which will then eventually evolve into the reptiles, which will then evolve into dinosaurs, and then eventually evolve into Queen Elizabeth. But this is just a fun science segment, you think. Oh, he's walking around the Carboniferous period. There are these giant trees sucking up all the oxygen, or putting it out, one or the other. I think they suck up carbon dioxide, whatever. Anyways, I'm bored of talking about science. I'm leaning against a big old tree, a big old Carboniferous tree. And I point to it and I go, this tree is actually known as a lepidodendron. And it's all bumpy. Has little dodendrons on him, a design, right? Little weird bark. And I'm leaning up against him and I'm scratching my back on the tree. And I go, yeah, we're back in the Carboniferous period. The reason why they call it this is because this is where most of the coal deposits of the world came from. All these swamps. The world's mostly covered in swamp water. We got big old trees, bugs, fish learning to walk. Eventually, all this stuff's going to be dead and turn into coal. And then we're going to use it to create energy. But for right now, let's just lean against this tree and soak in the shade. And that's when you lean against the tree, you're kind of leaning there, and you feel something weird in your chest. It's not the poison slowly coursing through your veins as you're stung by millions of giant wasps. No. You get a sense of familiarity. You get a sense that this isn't just any tree. This tree might actually be a friend. Let's fast forward, 250 million years to the present day, or roughly. This story takes place a couple years ago, but not Carboniferous period years ago. A couple years ago from now. We're about to meet a young man. We don't have his real name. We'll call him Peter. One day, Peter was sitting at home, and on television is a nature documentary. He doesn't know nothing about this stuff. It doesn't even sound like he's particularly interested in nature, let alone prehistoric nature. The documentary was about old-timey stuff. Millions of years old. And it just sounds like he's kind of watching it because he's bored. Not like he was seeking out this entertainment. He's sitting there and the documentary's like, this is what life was back. This is what life was like back in the Carboniferous period. Here's an illustration of what a fish might have thought while he was banging his wife. It's just, show a little thought bubble over the fish. It's just dirt. Big pile of dirt. The world was covered in swamps. Their giant insects ruled the world during the Carboniferous period. The documentary's going on, and Peter's sitting there watching it, and he goes, I didn't know any of this stuff. I had really no interest in this topic, and I definitely didn't know anything about this period of time, the Carboniferous period, because I don't recall it ever being talked about in class. It's not something they would talk about in general education. You know about the Jurassic period, you know about the Crustacean period, but I didn't know about this Carboniferous period either. He goes, I wasn't interested in this. I didn't know anything about it. I never heard about it before, but as I'm watching this documentary and they're talking about the Carboniferous period, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, that's not right. That's not right. Look at this giant fern, the narrator would say. This fern with big green leaves reaching out, suckling up the water from the nearby river. And Peter'd go, that's not what that fern looked like. He goes, wait a second, I don't know what this is the first time I've ever seen that fern. And look, a giant beetle flying through the air, looking to eat some food that will eventually evolve into what we call apples. He's like, what? That's not what that beetle looks like. I mean, it's close, but it definitely wasn't that color. And Peter's sitting there and he goes, but wait a second, I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about this time period. Why am I realizing, truly knowing that all of this stuff is wrong? It's close, but at the end of the day, it's wrong. The plants that they were describing was just off. The features of any sort of animal life was close, but not exact. He's watching this documentary, and he starts to feel this sense of nostalgia well up inside of him. He's like, what's going on? Peter realizes that even the color of the sky is not right. Close. Like a guess might be. But Peter realizes something in this moment. He lived during the Carboniferous period. He goes, I don't fully understand what I'm thinking right now. But the only way I would know all these details that scientists have gotten wrong is if I was back there at some point. And this actually starts a fire in his belly. He develops a passion for researching about the Carboniferous period. He delves right into it, and that's when he really comes to the conclusion that not only in a past life did he live during the Carboniferous period, he was a tree, specifically the Lepidodendron tree. These were massive. They had a trunk that was about 3 feet in diameter, and they reached up about 160 feet into the sky. Huge, huge tree. That was Peter in a past life. Peter said, a little bit of shock, right? Kind of a weird sense to realize first off, that reincarnation exists, that it's real, and you now know what happens after you die with certainty, because it had happened to you and you have the memory of it. But he goes, it also filled me with a deep sense of sadness because of what I had lost. It wasn't just that he had lived before. He lived before in a world that was truly peaceful. He said, quote, I was next to water, and it felt like the coziest day. Like I can see everything around me. Everyone is going about their business, and I'm just chilling, watching. But the day never ended. It went on for what felt like forever. It's hard to explain, honestly. Unquote. Fascinating story. To me, it's a really cool way to kick off season 29. Listen, I love the idea of reincarnation because I love Earth so much and I love life so much. The idea of going to some paradise that I can't comprehend, to me, is scarier than being reincarnated back on Earth. Now, I know I could be reincarnated into some awful situation on Earth, sure. We're going to talk about that a little bit in our next story, but the idea that life, first off, that there is life after death, which I believe there is, but there is a certain sense of peace knowing that it's not some abstract paradise, or even a very literal paradise that you'll see written in religious texts, but you're back on Earth. And this idea that life abides for hundreds of millions of years, and this guy unlocked it, that he actually was this tree. He wasn't a Triceratops getting its guts ripped out by a rival dinosaur. No, he was a big old tree. And life was so peaceful, it just felt like one long, unending, warm day. Fascinating, really, when you think about it. The human experience can be brutal and it can be blessed. The tree, outside, listen, if you're a tree and you live 50 years and then some lumberjack cuts you down, that happens. The last 10 minutes of your life are going to be kind of terrifying as that chainsaw rips through you. But don't measure your life or anyone's life in the last moments of it. Measure it in all of the months and years before. There's something very peaceful about that. It is interesting, though, too, because if you think about it, there's far more bugs and plants on Earth than there will ever be human. So you would assume, this is what's interesting about the story. So this was posted online by someone named Pixie Play. And on the one hand, it's interesting because you have this idea of reincarnation, life after death, and this person being a very unique life form before humanity, and how they discovered it. They're just watching this documentary. Now, they could have ended up not watching that documentary. They could have decided to play video games all day that day, or went for a walk, or any of the million things in between, and not have seen that, and they never would have known. So first off, how they discovered that information. But you would assume that everyone's been a plant at some point, because there's just more plants than there are humans. So were we all plants before? And we just don't remember it? Like this memory was unlocked for him? If you sat and watched some nature documentaries, would you be like, oh yeah, I used to be a blister beetle. Those are those beetles that lived 40 million years ago. They used to give people blisters before people existed, so they died off pretty quickly. Information we don't have access to always intrigues me. I mean, how do you know you're not the best pitcher in your town? You're like that number one guy who can throw a fastball 130 miles an hour with pinpoint accuracy, but you don't know because you never played baseball. I always wonder about that. Hidden talents that people have. I might be the best pickleball player on the planet, but I would never know because I don't play pickleball. I hear we did an episode on it a while back. It was described as worse than cancer. So I think I'm pretty clear on not playing pickleball. I got a lot of friends who do. But I'll put that episode in the show notes. You just don't know what you can do. I might be the best seamstress in the world. Or wouldn't I be a seamster? Seamstress, is that a woman? But you know what I mean? I might be the best sous chef. I don't even know what that is. I think it's the guy who helps the cook, like, make the buns or something like that. But I might be the best. I might be the best. Sound like Donald Trump at this point. I'm the best. I'm the best of stuff I don't even know that I'm good at. But you know what I mean? Unknown knowledge is always very interesting to me. For all I know, I used to be an Arabian footman. Like, I was a soldier in some army that a sheik was saying, go out and take over those countries. And I don't know because I never read Arabic history. I never read, like, the history of that region. So I don't know, right? I mean, that's what's kind of weird about it. For all you know, any book that you pick up, people go, wow, I used to be a serial thief. Wow, I used to be a serial killer back in ancient Babylon times. Good thing I read this book about murder predating the written word. Like, you just wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know until you came across that information. Fascinating story. I love reincarnation stuff. Do I believe in reincarnation? Not really. I think it can happen. I don't think it's the norm. That's kind of my view on it. I don't think everyone gets reincarnated. And I don't know why it works that way. Because I either say I believe in it and everyone gets reincarnated, which I don't believe that, or I don't believe in it at all. But there's just way too many stories. I mean, this one is weird. It's also possible this guy had some sort of stroke or seizure or developing a mental illness while watching the show. That is possible as well. And it's all in his head. But there's even outside of this, there's so much literature and so much experiences about people remembering details they shouldn't remember. Some of them are fraudulent, yes. But a lot of them are true. And there's enough stuff to make me think reincarnation does happen sometimes. But I don't think it's the norm. Fantasy Crest, let's go ahead and toss you the keys of the world. Famous Carpenter copter. We are leaving behind the Carboniferous period. We're waving goodbye to that tree. I wonder if you listen to that segment and you're like, oh, I'm a tree too, dude. Like, maybe just me talking about it. Maybe me talking about it gave you a deep, intense mental illness where now you think you were also a tree. Maybe it unlocked a memory. Maybe this show is always unlocking memories. People are like, oh, I used to be a fast food ghost too. I used to hang out at Taco Bell and haunt old ladies. Which if that was the case, I'd be like, can I not get reincarnated? Can I be this old lady scaring ghost at Taco Bell a little bit longer? I don't want to be a human just yet. We're leaving behind the Carboniferous period. Fantasy Crest, why don't you fly us all the way out to Chile? Oh, I want to say this too. I need to announce this. Yesterday we had an episode. Today we have an episode. Thursday's episode will be the Thanksgiving live stream. I totally spaced. I got to announce this. Thanksgiving, we're doing our annual live stream. I'm going to post it all over the socials, but 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the YouTube channel, we're going to be doing the live stream. We always have a blast. I don't know how many people are going to show up this time because I'm announcing it like very shortly before it happens, but I hope to see you guys there. So what Thursday's episode is going to be is that. We're going to take that episode. They tend to be about 2 hours long. People ask questions. Again, I don't know how many people are going to show up. It might only be nobody. It might be nobody. But in that case, I'll just ramble on for 2 hours and then post it. That sounds low effort. If no one shows up, I will talk about organized things for 2 hours, then I'll post it. So Thursday's episode will be the Thanksgiving live stream. But if you guys can join us, we'll be on YouTube 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hope you guys can, because I always have a blast doing that. It's a lot of fun doing our annual Thanksgiving live stream. Okay, so we're headed all the way out to Chile. Specifically, we're headed to the region of southern Chile to investigate a brutal beast. One that, if this thing is real, and a lot of people believe that it is, might be one of the most disturbing creatures on the planet. You're like, wow, Jason, you're really building it up. There's a lot of cryptids and just a lot of regular things that are horrible and disturbing on Earth, but this one might be one of the worst. One of the worst. I'm going to stick by that. We're headed out to southern Chile. Specifically, we're headed to the coastal wetlands. So again, we're in a big swampy area. So we got on our swamp boots and our, what are those, waders, right? We have those big rubber pants we're walking around in so we don't get too wet. And I go, I didn't bring you guys out here for no reason. That would have been funny. And it's like, hey, yeah, let's spend all day in the swamp and I'll tell you a ghost story. And then I don't. And you just get horrible foot diseases. No, that's not why we're here. We're here because, And you're like, what? Did you make that noise? I go, no. No, I did not make that noise. Did you heard that? And you're like, yeah. I go, I didn't make that noise. So it's obvious I'm doing the noise now in front of the microphone, but in this narrative version, it's not me. You're looking right at me. My mouth is closed when you hear, And I go, guys, no. This is what we're here for. We're here to investigate one of the most evil cryptids ever. And then I turn and I look and I go, hey, just to be clear, none of you guys are pregnant, right? Like, what? I was wondering why he handed out all of those pregnancy tests on the Carpenter copter. I just thought he was just being a goofball. No, I wasn't. You were supposed to pee on them and find out if you're pregnant. None of you are pregnant, right? And I will assume that if you are pregnant and listening to this episode, you should be fine. I don't think... Like, wait, what? It's a little late, Jason. I'm 9 months pregnant. I've listened this long. Is everything going to be okay? I think so. But there's no guarantees because this creature is nuts. And I will assume that if you are pregnant and listening to this episode, everything will be fine. But if it's not, don't blame me. Because this is pretty intense. Let's go ahead and keep going as we see like 3 or 4 people get back on the Carpenter copter. They're like, I'll just stay here. It's good. We're about to meet a creature known as the Huallepen. The Huallepen is a type of Chilean creature that falls under the subsection of something called the Wekufe, which is a sinister spirit, an evil entity. Separate from demons. They actually will classify demons as one thing, but this is something separate. It's just pure evil in a physical form. They like to lay waste to mankind. This creature in particular, what the story is at some point a water spirit came onto land and had sex with the livestock. So imagine a merman getting out of the water. Or actually, because most of these creatures are by the coastline. So a cow wanders too close to a river, a swampy river. Just close enough that a merman can jump up and latch on to the cow and begin banging it. You're like, can you imagine stumbling across that? You're on a tour of Chile. You're like, oh, this country's so beautiful. But what's that? And you see a merman having sex with a cow. Well, apparently, that's happened. Well, okay, to be fair, technically it's in a water spirit. It didn't actually say a merman, but then imagine a man made of water jumping out. You're like, that's less insane. You see a full-bodied man made of water humping a cow. A water spirit bangs a cow, and it gives birth to this deformed creature. But what's interesting is this deformed creature lives in the water and on land, And this Huallepen will then, when it wants to breed, also jump out of the water. So now it's half cow, half water creature, and it's banging a sheep. So the baby that sheep gives birth to will be half cow, half sheep, and a water creature. A little bit, maybe it's like 40% cow, 40% sheep, and what? Oh, 20% water creature. I'm more of a scientist than a math guy. So nowadays, the creature has kind of taken on a universal form, but originally it was just banging whatever livestock was available. And because of this weird interbreeding, a cow having sex with a sheep, having sex with a waterman, it has kind of coalesced. Like, this is a species. This is a cryptid. It's not a one-off thing. Like the headless mule that we covered in Brazil with just had the flame shooting out where the head should be. I'll put that episode in the show notes. This is a species of cryptid, more on par with a chupacabra or a Bigfoot type of thing. They continue to breed with livestock. It has the head of a cow, the body of a shorn sheep, but its legs are flippers. And that is where the water aspect comes from. It can breathe perfectly well underwater. It can live on land as well. But when it's on land, it walks very weird because it just has these flippers. It has a very unnatural gait. It makes this mournful wail, which is what I was doing in the beginning. So you can hear this thing coming from a mile away. And even if you stumbled across it on land, you would look at it as just this deformed monstrosity. You know exactly what you're looking at. If you lived in the region, you'd see it and you'd go, oh, that's a Huallepen. If you heard it, you wouldn't even go out to the shoreline because that's where these things tend to congregate. But if you see it on land, because of the fact that it can't move very well, they're pretty easy to avoid. They also kind of have telltale signs that they've been in the area. Chilean fishermen and villagers, if they start to see a lot of deformed sea life, like deformed fish and eels and whatever's down there, wash up on the shoreline, then they'll go, oh, there's a Huallepen nearby. And they'll avoid the area for days. Because what they figure is that this Huallepen has most likely been banging fish and having sex with eels. And then the eels are giving birth to deformed eels and fish and all this stuff. So, you're definitely not going to want to fish there for a while. You're like, I don't know, I'm pretty hungry. And that trout that has the head of a cow, that looks pretty delicious. Surf and turf, anyone? They're deathly afraid of these things down there. And you're like, well, why? I mean, it looks ugly, sure, but what's it going to do? It walks around, it can't really chase you. And that's true on land. The Huallepen considers the water its natural environment. It considers it its home. And it will kill you on sight if it catches you in the water. It doesn't care. I mean, like, it 100% will attack you and rip you to shreds. And that's another sign that a Huallepen's been in the area. They'll find mutated or deformed local sea life. Or they'll find fish and eels and whatever's down there ripped to shreds, just washing up onto the shore. They're like, oh, there's a Huallepen down there. Don't go over there. Definitely don't fish there. Because it sees the water as its home and it will defend its home with... Well, it's so evil, it doesn't even think like, you're in its domain, so it has to kill you. No, it will kill you for sport. Not even for sport. That, again, makes it sound like it has a different reason to kill. It kills you because it hates life. That is what the Huallepen is known for. It hates life. Not its life. All life. Even though it has this need to constantly procreate, it wants to destroy everything that is living. So it will just kill to do that. Not for sport, not for food, not for self-defense, because it hates things that are alive. The sound effect that I did, I don't remember what it was. I was trying to do a cow and a wailing cow, but that's probably not super accurate. They say that the sound is more like a bleeding lamb, not a bleeding like it's been bloody, but bleeding like bah, lamb, mixed with an animal that's currently drowning. So let's try that one. I mean, that's way scarier, right? I was looking at my notes, I was like, I know I described the scream at some point, but I couldn't find it. Now I did. I mean, you're definitely not investigating that one. The first one, you're like, I don't know, that sounds kind of weird. This one, a bleeding lamb and a drowning animal, presently drowning, not already drowned, which would sound different. It would just sound like you had water in your lungs. This one would be currently drowning. It's scarier. It's scarier. What's scarier, the sound of a man who's been hung or the sound of a man currently hanging? You hear this and people are like, we're just not going to go over there. There's obviously something evil there. It's obviously the Huallepen. Now, what's interesting is you go, Jason, okay, so you've covered a lot of cryptids on this show, and they've been pretty brutal. You've covered things that kill humans. You've covered things that... Well, I was about to say Walking Sam. He's not really a cryptid, but that's a spirit that entices young people to kill themselves. I mean, that's horrible. Yeah, that is pretty bad. I forgot about that one when I said, oh, this is so disturbing. But in a way, I think, that's bad. I'm not going to say that this one's worse. But... So, okay, I mean, I guess I am kind of saying it's worse because the Huallepen, remember, it hates life. It hates life. It wants to destroy all life. So what's the best way to do that? The Huallepen has a very, very distinct way of destroying life, and it'll do this to both humans and animals. And that is what it will do is it will hunt down pregnant women. Now, if a woman is pregnant and she sees a Huallepen, the creature is so deformed and so evil, so twisted, that her own child in her womb will become deformed. The face scrunching up, the arms twisting backwards, the legs, the feet are turning around, and she gives birth to a deformed baby. That's pretty bad, but that's not as bad as it gets, right? Because you go, well, there's an easy fix for that. I mean, the baby's been deformed. You can't do much for that kid. You can give him, surgeries, probably. That very famous turn your feet back around surgery that I've seen. But no, I mean, like a deformed baby, it's pretty sad. It's almost about as sad as the story gets. Outside of a bunch of teenagers killing themselves. I know, I shouldn't have brought that up as an example. But it attacks unborn children. But you go, oh, that's horrible, Jason. That's absolutely horrible. But there's an easy fix for that, not for the child who's already been born. But don't go to the coastline. They know that these things tend to inhabit areas that are very watery, swamps and rivers and the coast. So if you're pregnant, all the woman has to do is for 9 months not go surfing. And she'll be totally fine. Her baby won't be born deformed. And I would argue, that it would be a good fix if, this is what makes, to me, the Huallepen even more disturbing, that won't stop its desire to deform babies. The Huallepen has become so adept at twisting the fetuses growing inside mom. Like, if that's what it really wants to do. And as less and less pregnant women were coming to the coastline, the Huallepen decided to use a previously unknown psychic power these creatures had. You won't come to the river? Then I'll come to you. But I can't walk on land, obviously. If you're like a pregnant woman, you can easily outrun one of these things. So what it does is, as a pregnant woman is sleeping, it will psychically attack her. Doesn't matter where she's at. She doesn't have to be... I think she has to be in Chile. I don't know if this would work in London. But she doesn't have to be by the coast. The Huallepen can psychically attack the pregnant woman, in her dreams. And she starts having these dreams of all these twisted monstrosities. She starts to see all this horrible stuff in her dreams. And she keeps dreaming of the Huallepen. Now, if it happens one time, the baby's okay. If the woman has a second dream, with the Huallepen and all this horrific deformity vision type stuff, the baby might be okay. But if the Huallepen's able to transmit these images to her more than just a few times, the baby that will be born out of this woman's womb will be a twisted, I don't want to say monstrosity, right? But will be twisted and deformed. That's pretty evil. That's pretty evil. I mean, if we had to make a chart, a tier list of most evil cryptids, Walking Sam's a ghost, he doesn't count, or an evil spirit, that might be at the top. I can't think, we do have, okay, now that I think about it, we have other cryptids that eat babies out of women's wombs. But, you know, it's very interesting. This is an interesting story. So people in Chile are super afraid of this thing. To this day, they're terrified of this creature. It's interesting because on the one hand, I actually looked it up. What country has the most baby deformities? The most deformities. Now, a lot of those were not like gross ones. They didn't have it broken down like that. Sometimes it's the heart born out of the chest, which is fatal. Sometimes it's like a clubfoot, which isn't fatal. It's pretty inconvenient. I imagine the Huallepen doesn't like do either of those. I mean, he wants the baby to look ugly and disgusting. Not like a garbage pail kid. And like, well, kid, I hope you like trading cards because you're going to be on one of them. Atomic Eddie. You have an artist right there at every live birth in Chile. Apparently, Chile actually has very, very low rate of baby deformity births. I was actually surprised a lot of the countries were Africa and the Middle East had like the highest. And I was looking for like, some of them were like, I was like, wow, that's a lot of deformed babies. I'm at work, I'm all reading on my phone, I'm like, what? Deformed babies? No, some of them were, they looked high because it was high for the live, like how many births per 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever it was. I'll put the link in the show notes, but it'll be like, just for example, I don't remember the exact one, but it's like Sweden says they have 50 deformities for, that's not real, I'm just guessing, but let's just say, for example, Sweden has 50 deformities for every 1,000 babies born, but then you look at how many babies are actually born in that country with deformities, it's like 34. Because there's not a lot of people having kids over there. I'd see that pop up a couple times. I was like, wow, there's a real problem over there. And then I'm like, oh, just 34 of a country that only has 500,000 people? That's nothing. But no, Chile doesn't even rank super high for deformities in the Western world. I think Brazil had the highest amount. And of course, obviously I think India, or was it China had the highest amount as well, because when you look at population, India, China, Brazil, very populous nations, they have a high rate of deformities. But, I mean, it's interesting because on the one hand, a baby being deformed, you go, oh man, because you know that kid's going to have a hard time, or a harder time. But it's also interesting because nowadays with the medicine that we have available, you know, I mean, they can put the heart back inside your body. Maybe we'll do some plastic surgery on your face. I don't mean to laugh. But what I'm saying is, nowadays, if you have a deformed baby, you can take it to the doctor and they can go, your baby was born with 3 hands. We're just going to cut one of those hands off. And there you go. There you go. You got a baby with 2 hands. What about his arms? His arms are backwards. That's a different doctor who will fix that one. You can fix a lot of this stuff is what I'm saying. You know, like cleft lip where you have like your part of your lips missing? You can fix some of that. I mean, it's not easy. It's not cheap. I'm not saying, it's not a big deal. But I'm saying I would say it's less of a big deal now than it was 100 years ago. If you had club feet 100 years ago, your life is way harder than if you have club feet today. I would assume. I don't have club feet. But I would assume nowadays the doctor could go, well, you know, we'll give you shoes. We'll put on shoes that were designed for people with club feet, and you'll be fine. I'm assuming that is true. I know the heart's born outside the chest is kind of hard thing to fix, because you got to fix it right away. Your heart's beating outside of your chest. You kind of got to, like, do some stuff. I think they did finally figure out how to save babies with that. My point is that this would be a death sentence. This is an old legend. It would have been death sentence 100 years ago. Nowadays, it may still not be great. You know, we're talking about villages in Chile. We're not talking about the capital of Chile or anything like that, where just like in any country, the science and the medicine seem to be better in the capitals and in the metropolitan cities, as opposed to even in America, where you're going to get a better doctor, New York City or BFE, Appalachia. So, very interesting as far as that goes. Something that would have been horrific and life-ending back then now is horrific and maybe won't kill you. But it's interesting because it may just want to make babies ugly. And there's not really a fix for that. I made a joke earlier about plastic surgery, but if your baby's born and just like busted up, like its face is just cottage cheese, right? But everything else works perfect. You can give the kid plastic surgery as they get older, but they're going to have to spend, 14, 15 years of their life busted. People might be mean to that kid. Some very insensitive podcast hosts may crack jokes about it and say, your face looks like cottage cheese. Which I was thinking, I go, what possible deformity? What could go wrong in a human DNA chain that would make your face white, creamy, and lumpy? I don't really think there's anything. But that's the power of the Huallepen. Cleft lips they'll fix when you're a kid. They'll fix that stuff. But I mean, if it's just like, no, your baby can breathe fine, they can eat fine, they can tap dance, and they can sing, everything works, but they're just horrifically ugly. So you're going to have to wait till they get to old enough to put in, like, plastic surgery stuff. Which, in your kid's case, I would just recommend the new head. It looks like cottage cheese. It's making me hungry. Anyone have peaches? If it's just making babies gross looking, I mean, there's not a lot of fix for that. So fascinating stuff. And I will say this too. I was telling this story to my friend Sabine, and she's like, oh, those old world religions, those old world superstitions, people still believe in that stuff. I go, well, actually, I remember hearing this story. My mom got pregnant really young. I remember when, I don't remember it obviously, but I believe she was pregnant with me. Might have been one of the other siblings, but I believe it was with me. My mother believed, because she had heard of this, it's an old wives' tale, but she goes, I don't know why I believed it. It's obviously ludicrous, but it terrified me. She believed, and we're talking 1970s here, that if she looked at an ugly baby, her baby would be ugly. She had heard that her whole life. If you're pregnant and you look at an ugly baby, your baby will be ugly. And she said that one day she was walking through a department store as a young pregnant woman, and she saw a super ugly baby in a baby stroller. Like, busted up baby. And it filled her with intense fear. And she turned away really quickly. Because she was afraid that her baby would be ugly. I wasn't. Right? I wasn't ugly. I don't think I'm ugly. I don't think I'm super hot, but I don't think I'm cottage cheese ugly. So that is even in the 1970s in America, and I'm sure there is still that superstition today. That what a woman, I actually was looking that up, they do kind of exist out there still. The idea that the mother can be responsible for the physical welfare of the baby inside of her. Now, I understand, like, obviously, if she's smoking cigarettes and eating nothing but Taco Bell, that baby's probably going to have some problems. But it's not like that. Psychically, what a woman views or thinks of while she's pregnant can affect whether or not the baby is deformed, or the baby is born with some sort of disease, or the baby is just butt ugly. That is still a not super common belief, but it's a superstition, and you'll see pregnant women be afraid of having those thoughts. And for most of the world, it is something that is just a superstition, and you talk to anyone and they're like, well, no, that's not true. Just if you look at an ugly baby doesn't mean your baby's going to be ugly. Don't worry about it. But there's one small part of the world in Chile, the southern part of Chile, where it's not a superstition. They believe this. They believe this is possible. And not only possible, they believe something is doing it on purpose. It's not like you randomly bump into an ugly baby at Sears when you're shopping. No, there's a creature lurking in the water, sending horrific visions into the minds of sleeping pregnant women to destroy these babies inside of them. To them, it's not just a superstition, it's a fact of life. The idea is true to them. If you're pregnant, every time you lay down to go to sleep, there is a chance that you will have a vision of a Huallepen, a deformed creature that hates the life growing inside of you. Oh, I should also say, too, let me add that we're going to wrap it up here in a second. It also does this to animals. It hates life so much, the livestock will, just livestock in the area will give birth to deformed creatures. Deformed sheep and deformed cows and deformed pigs. And they believe that's also the Huallepen doing that. You don't know if the pig dreamt about it, but the pig would be far enough away that they don't think that a Huallepen had sex with it. They think that the Huallepen was psychically attacking this pregnant pig, psychically attacking this cow. So that's how vicious it is. That's how much it hates life. It'll even attack non-humans. It just wants to destroy. Think about this, again, to wrap it up. A woman gets pregnant in southern Chile, and she knows these stories. She believes these stories. This is a fact of life for them. She now knows that for the next 9 months, every time she falls asleep, there is a chance she will have a dream of a deformed monstrosity. And if she has a dream more than a few times, her baby will be twisted and deformed as well. 9 months this creature has to enter her dreams just a couple of times. 9 months of sleep. 9 months of nightmares. 9 months of waiting, not knowing that on that day when you give birth to your child, whether it will be totally healthy or just another victim of the Huallepen's war against all living things. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys. And I'm glad to be back, man. That was awesome. Really glad to be back.